What's good? God is good. I'm your host, Jay Did It. Welcome to Thursday Therapies, a podcast for all creatives, writers, rappers, poets, artists, activists, Sacramento community therapy session. Today we have Moon Magic. Coming from a broken home and a low-income neighborhood in Southern California, Moon Magic, also known as the hip-hop witch, transformed her pain into purpose through music with roots grounded in alchemy, healing, and hip-hop. She channels her art as a form of transformation and empowerment. An MC, producer, DJ, educator, and tarot reader, Moon blends intellect and intuition, holding a master's in urban education and a bachelor's in political science. Since her debut in Sacramento in 2017, she's toured nationally and internationally alongside icons like KRS-One and the Hieroglyphics. Inspired by legends like J. Cole, MF Doom, and Erykah Badu, Moon Magic brings old soul, wisdom, and modern voice, moving differently and inspiring others to do the same. Her self-produced album, Move Different, is streaming everywhere now. Welcome to Thursday Therapies. How you doing?
Doing good. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you're on here. I watched you so many times at different venues in Sacramento, and I'm just like, I know you would be perfect. I'm glad that we have been able to have this chance to meet up and have you on the show because your music is dope and what you do for the community is even amazing.
Thank you. I know we've been talking about it for a minute, so I'm glad we finally got to line it up.
Right. Perfect timing too. So as you know, Thursday Therapies is a podcast bringing awareness to mental health, just getting to know your journey and know you as an artist and as a human being and hopefully be able to touch somebody out there and let them get to know you. So I want to ask you some questions.
Sounds good.
Good. So your early life, in the beginning, what was life like growing up in the EI in Southern California? The IE.
The IE, and growing up in the IE, so I grew up in Moreno Valley, which wasn't a city till 1980 something, and it wasn't very many opportunities for artists or for creatives like there are in other major cities. There's still, we all find a way, you know what I mean?
Right.
We still make do with what we have, but it definitely was a different type of experience of art, music, culture, and hip-hop than when I went to school at Pomona, at Cal Poly Pomona, and started going to a lot of my first shows and stuff. So that being said, and not having kind of a place for youth to go to be creative, I experienced most of my creativity and those things in school, which was very important. And I'm really grateful that my schools had those programs at the time, because being a low-income student and in a low-income family, having those opportunities to be able to do things like band and choir and other extracurriculars like that. I was in pretty much everything you could think of, every sport, every student government. Just super involved, mainly because I didn't like being home also. But just really loved the aspect of being in community as well, and being creative, So those were the ways that I got to channel that. But, as I mentioned, not really enjoying being home and having difficulties with my home life. That also was challenging because there was so much of myself that I don't think I really got to discover in my youth, because my body, mind, and spirit was more in survival mode. And, how do I get out? It was more of my priority until I turned 18. And even then, I think it took me a lot of time to kind of process and, recuperate a little bit. And so... it's, it was very difficult in those aspects of family life, which still as an adult can be very difficult. And then, with school, I was very fortunate to be able to be part of those programs and that they existed for us. But at the same time, within my peer systems and peer relationships, I wasn't really, didn't really always have the best relationships and struggled in that aspect as well. Got bullied a lot. I didn't have a really great sense of self or self-esteem growing up, and it was difficult at the time because I being poor and being one of the only white kids on my soccer team and things like that I didn't at the time obviously understand the dynamics of what's going on politically or socially or any of those things. I internalized a lot of that in a way that I think wasn't healthy as a child.
Right.
And then not having really great home parental guidance, and there being a lot of alcoholism and abuse and other things that were happening there. But like I said, without those programs in school, I don't know if I would be where I am today or who I am today, because those really were kind of the silver lining through everything, or the lifeline through everything. Was really, really diving into that. And I remember when we started learning poetry and getting super into that, and I would get so excited and show my teacher what do you think of this poem, nerd out on that kind of stuff, and writing my own short stories. And a lot of it was a form of escape as well. Which, something as an adult I also had to work through as well. But yeah, that was kind of what it was like growing up as a child, and not having as much, I don't know if self-identity is the right word, but just sense of self overall, and ability to really do anything about it. I didn't have a car. My family never really left our city. We didn't go on vacations and things like that. It was very few times we would do stuff like that. So even my scope of the world was a lot more isolated and limited before I went to college.
Wow.
And of course, this is before phones and all that is what it is now. We didn't have all that happening.
Right.
And also, even when the internet, started happening, I was kind of scared of it, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, and it was more of a form of let me play these games and, escapism again,
Absolutely, absolutely. You kind of answered a little bit of it, but how did your environment and upbringing shape your perspective on life and identity?
Man, that's a big question. There's so many ways I could answer that question. The first thing I think I want to bring attention to is that I think growing up in a neighborhood and a community that didn't look like me really shaped me a lot as a person. One, it made me very hyper aware of my whiteness in spaces and what that impact was, which I still think as an adult is very difficult to navigate for myself in those spaces. But it also, too, made me also really look at things from how other people felt and lived and things outside of myself in a way that I think really helped me to, as when I got older, to be more open to things that I wouldn't necessarily be open to. And then, of course, with my family life, I think it kind of, I don't want to say it radicalized me, but it definitely pushed me even further in many ways, because I think all of that is a symptom of a sickness that comes from whiteness, to be honest. Whether we're talking about incest that happens within a lot of white families, whether we're talking about sexual abuse and trauma, alcoholism, a lot of those types of things that I think all comes down to a lot of that kind of same identity. So yeah, that environment really shaped me to push me to places outside of myself. A lot of the spaces I've been a part of and communities I've been a part of are communities that, like I said, don't look like me. But it's also pushed me to challenge myself in ways that I probably wouldn't have challenged myself had I not grown up in that kind of environment and situation. Maybe I would be like, oh, this is normal for me and this is the status quo of how things are, you know?
That's powerful.
Yeah, I still am trying to figure out how to best navigate it in a way that's in harmony for everyone, and there's always learning and unlearning. And then, as being around alcoholism and all those other things that are happening within those situations, it's kind of like struggling in certain ways to connect in community because there's this barrier of my identity in the spaces I grew up in.
Yeah.
But then struggling at home because
Right.
all the other things.
Right. Yeah.
So finding spaces for myself that and finding community, and kind of I've always kind of been that person who ends up being friends or finding the outliers of spaces. And,
Right.
I think that's one way my environment's kind of affected me is
Yeah.
I kind of find those people that don't really fit into any box.
Yeah.
And I think in many ways it's also helped me to be able to do a lot of the things that I do.
Yeah. You're amazing.
To, you know, have the capacity to hold space in different ways and, you know, to empathize with others and especially teaching and
Right.
things like that, which can be very difficult to see yourself in your students or
Right.
see where your students are coming from.
Yeah.
Let me see if that's all the ways I answered this question. That's a big question.
It is a big question, and you got a big answer. Yeah. I mean, that's a lot of different dynamics that you had to live through.
Yeah, it also really pushed me towards music, you
Right.
know, because I think it was the one way I could channel all that energy.
Right.
Because my environment also made me extremely self-conscious,
Yeah.
but also extremely self-aware, which I don't think is a great pairing. So I think it kind of pushed me to also work through those things through music and through performing and that kind of stuff as well.
Yeah.
And still something that I think I'm working through in many ways.
Yeah, everybody's a work in progress, and I think you're doing an amazing job,
Oh,
you know,
thank
with
you.
what you're doing here today and in the community.
I
So
appreciate
it really
you.
shows. It
Thank
really
you.
shows. So what was your home life like for you, and how did that impact your sense of self as a child?
Girl, these questions. Ooh. Okay, I'm gonna catch my breath. Man. Growing up, and this was something that I didn't really, and I'm curious if other people can relate to this. If there's ever a time period where you realize, oh, like that's not normal,
Absolutely.
you know? And so there's a lot of that
Yeah.
that I think I didn't even realize till I got into college, to be honest.
Yeah.
And it was really through conversations that I had with other people on my college campus and the various different organizations that I was in. And mainly because I've been always big about, you know, being in community and how can I get involved and those kinds of things. You know, we would do different trainings, and they'd have like, you know, these circles that we would get together and share kind of layers of ourselves. And that's when I would hear other people sharing their stories and kind of started connecting the dots towards the end of my time in college. Like, oh, this stuff isn't actually normal.
Right.
And so it really affected my sense of self because there's a lot of things that I think I've normalized that aren't normal. One, and that goes so deep, whether we're talking about friendships, how you navigate spaces in community, family relationships, romantic relationships. There's so much to peel back and have to like dive in within that. And then also how to be that for yourself. You know what I mean? Almost like, you know, the parenting yourself
Right.
type of aspect. There's a lot of things that I felt like I kind of had to reteach myself. And I had to really go through a lot of like, well, who am I?
Yeah.
And
I think we all do that.
Especially because who I am doesn't reflect at all who I feel like my family is. Because I was the one person in my family who was like, I'm so not going to be this.
Right.
So then it took me a while to like, one, get into a safe environment where then I could say, well, then what are you? Who are you?
Right.
Well, I don't even feel safe to even ask that question. And I don't even know where to begin to ask that question or what that even means or what healthy examples of that look like. And it was really being in community and spaces like open mics and,
Right.
you know, things like that really helped me to kind of figure out, oh, these are the things I'm gravitating to. Like, these are the things I
Nice.
like. These are
Yeah.
the things that feel good to me. And but I feel like I'm a late bloomer in many ways because of that as well. Because I didn't really have the ability, sense of awareness around it, or I just feel like most of it was really the safety to ask those questions in my house. So it wasn't until I left and was an adult that I even began really figuring out who I am as a person, you know.
Yeah. Well, that's beautiful. I'm glad you are, because you're a beautiful human being. You're a beautiful person. You know, you bring so much light into this world. Definitely, definitely. So you mentioned school was your favorite place. What made it such a safe, special place for you?
It wasn't
just
at
like
home.
Everything. Yeah. You mentioned
and
that
so
already.
I think it was the most sense of normalcy that I had.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I love that about school and teachers. You know, they have this sense of, we were talking earlier off camera about, as a teacher, I was always adamant about kind of separating who I am outside of school and who I am in school, because I think, especially for younger children, it creates that kind of safe, you don't know what they're experiencing outside of school. And the last thing they want to do is come into school and be like, I don't know if I can trust what I'm experiencing in school either from this adult who's supposed to be a safe person for me. And if anything, I would always say I hope that for those younger kids, because I was a 3rd grade, 4th grade, and 6th grade teacher, but especially for my 3rd grade teacher students, was really wanting, if anything, to just be that sense of normalcy in their life, because that's what a lot of school represented for me, was this thing you could like depend on. I know I was going to get food. I know that I had teachers who I felt like cared about me and appreciated, because I loved learning, so they seemed to appreciate that I loved to learn. I knew that I had different clubs and, you know, sports and things like that, that I was excited to, you know, go to school and do those things. And even beyond the pure conflicts or things that I was still struggling with in that way, those things were still these like beautiful ways of, you know, being able to kind of learn myself a little bit, but also create, like I said, it's mainly a sense of normalcy more than anything.
Nice. Yeah, it was kind of like that for me too. You know, school was the only place, like if I wanted to eat, I needed to go to school. You know, if I wanted to feel safe, I needed to go to school. So, you know, you brought that up in me just from hearing your story, because, and I think that's what that happens with a lot of kids who are impoverished, and you know, there's a lot of stuff going on behind closed doors that we don't know about. And that's why I'm like, a lot of people have childhood trauma, and working on it and bringing more awareness to it, that's my purpose. That's what this platform is for. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you for asking some really hard questions. These are things I was not expecting. I'm like, hold on, let me catch my breath. Let me like check my heartbeat.
Yes.
But you know, it's, bullies at school don't compare to the bully at home.
Right.
You know what I
That
mean?
part.
The big scary adult that you can't control or know when they're going to explode or what they're going to do or what's next. I mean, kids at school, you know, at least I got a fighting chance.
Right. And there's teachers there, hopefully that'll
teachers
help
or somebody.
save you. But no, for sure.
Yeah.
I get that. So what role did music or creativity play for you growing up? You tapped on that a little bit too.
It was like, I think it was just outside of school and just like enjoying learning. I like vividly remember starting to do poetry and being like, wow, this, like, I can do this. Like, I'm really good at this. Like, I don't know anything else in life, but I know I'm good at this. And really, really loving that. And so it really, like I said, provided a place for me to escape in many senses before I could physically do anything, you know, because that's, you know, the other thing I think about for children that's really, we don't think about maybe a lot in society is how many kids, you know, as adults, you know, and adults in abusive relationships, you know, you're an adult and that's already difficult because not everyone has the resources and ability to leave that situation. But now imagine a minor, you know, they can't even drive, you know. So there's not much you can really do but normalize the unnormal and create safe places within your mind and the space that you're in. And music and creativity and stuff like that was that for me, you know. I have numerous sketchbooks and we shared a little bit off screen about some of the early songs I wrote. And you know, and those were all very young, like end of elementary school into middle school. And and being a part of things like band and choir and
Right.
programs like that, it made me have something to look forward to.
Yeah.
And it made me feel like I had something that, brought a lot of joy and
Yeah.
meaning into my life, even at a young age, even before I even thought of it as something to ever do professionally, because that didn't come till way later. It was more of a place that I enjoyed going in my own mind and
Right.
in my heart, and
Right.
channeling that energy, having fun with my friends, making these songs, and and writing. I had this novel when I was in high school of a ton of short stories that I made. And the crazy thing about this novel is that it got stolen out of my mom's car while she was in it at a soccer game that I was at.
Wow.
And 2 weeks later, sometime like that, the police station had called us and said that they had found the journal.
Wow.
Because I had my number written, or my mom's number written on the journal.
On the inside.
They took everything else, like my iPod.
Oh, wow.
Shout out to the iPod days. I had like one of those like diary cameras,
Oh, wow.
that was like my favorite little thing, because
Oh, wow.
But yeah, so that
You still
came
have it?
back. I still have that journal, and
It was a blessing. It was meant to be. Look, you were being
That was the only thing I
aligned.
cared about.
You were being aligned your whole life. Look, you're destined. This is where you're supposed to be for sure. That's
and
dope.
it's wild because I reread some of those stories, and I'm like, man, I really was like
You knew what you were doing.
creating
Yeah.
like, this is like, one of the stories is about this girl. She goes to a grocery store and she steps into this magical world, right?
Wow.
And she meets all these people along the way, and the people represent like different suppressed emotions in her life that she's not able to confront because it's not safe, is really what the story's
Wow.
about. And there's this evil version of her that's like taking over the world, that's like,
So when
that's
is this
about
novel
to-
coming out?
I don't know if it'll ever come out.
Look, when is
Maybe
it
one
coming
day.
out? We
But
need to hear your
basically,
story.
the she has to face herself
Wow.
and face those suppressed emotions and allow herself to feel it in order to save this fairy tale land that
That's
she's
amazing.
in. And I read this back as an adult, like, what the heck? I wrote this when I was in 7th, 8th grade, maybe,
That's deep.
And so it was really a place for me to,
Yeah.
whether it was through music or writing, or, I created like a somewhat graphic novel for it.
Wow.
That was more just like sketches.
Oh, look, you're speaking into existence, so it will be on the shelf soon. It will be out
Coming
there.
someday.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, when did you first become aware of your mental health and how it affected your daily life?
Probably around the same time that like I started realizing, oh, this isn't normal.
In college?
In college.
Okay.
Yeah, like I don't think mental health, like that wasn't really a thing growing up. It was like, we ain't got time for all that.
Yeah, yeah.
We're gonna do, take a Motrin and keep it going.
Right, suck it up.
Suck it
That's
up.
pretty much, yeah.
Unless you're throwing up, you're going to school.
Right, that part,
Yeah, and I don't think, even something now that I'm still really working through is to allow myself to not have to be on and be like, I'm fine, everything's fine, I'm great, it was great, it's great. Because, it was so important as a child for me to minimize my emotions as much as possible for my own safety.
Yeah.
If I'm not okay and I show it, that's going to put me in more danger.
Absolutely.
So the best thing I can do is pretend like everything's great all the time.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what's going on. I'm fine. We're fine.
Oh,
And,
yeah. No, I got that same thing. I got the same thing. And if you, stop crying, be quiet, like, or I'm going to make you cry, or, those types of things, which is horrible. It's definitely horrible. But, no, you have to really put on a mask.
Yeah.
As
There's
a child.
a lot of masking as a child.
And
even still as an adult. Like,
still trying to peel those masks back and to get down to the
Yes. When I'm in spaces and I'm like, man, I'm have anxiety and I'm feeling, self-conscious and all the things, and then I start, I'm fine, we're great, everything's good, or I'm afraid to not be great, and then to other people's expectations, and then what that will lead to, because it's always about trying to minimize the outbursts of others, you know
Right.
what I mean? Because that was my reality as a child.
People pleaser. I was a people pleaser for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely. I was definitely a people pleaser.
I definitely try to detox from that. And it wasn't, honestly, I have to give a lot of shout out to my college. Cal Poly Pomona is where I went to school at. And I'm super thankful that I was a summer bridge student. So summer bridge is a program that's a part of EOP, which is the Education Opportunity Program in college. And if it wasn't for EOP, I don't know if I would have made it through college.
Yeah.
Because I remember calling my mom like the second week of EOP, like, I don't want to do this. Like, I don't know if I can do this. It's too much, you know? But also they gave us so many resources.
I had the same resources.
Yeah, that were just like so
blessing.
Such a blessing.
Yes.
And then being able to find other students who also came from many different walks of life. Because that included DACA, that includes foster youth, lots of different disadvantaged, you know,
disabilities,
backgrounds.
All that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So you really got to see how other people had a lot of similar experiences, but also different, you know, and really bond in a way of like, you know, like family, you know, they would always call us the EOP family. And, and a story about the bean. I don't know if they told you about the coffee bean. Where,
oh no.
You know, you got to be the bean where you like, you know, you don't want to be the carrot that gets like burnt, you know, the hot water will mold you down, you know, make you all mushy, you know, or I forgot what the other thing was, but I remember the bean changes the water. The coffee bean changes the water. You want to be the bean, you know? And so just having them as counselors and people who I could talk to, you know, during times when like I didn't have a car for 2 weeks in college and I couldn't afford a new car and I was biking like 14 miles every day between a job on campus and a job off campus and back to my apartment. And I lived with like 6 people in a 2-bedroom apartment. Shout out to my roommates.
You got to do what you got to do.
All the things, you know, that like, it was so great to have people who I could talk to about it. And then just the actual college classes too. Because I was a gender ethnic studies minor. So my minor's in multicultural studies leadership. And so Gender Ethnic Studies 101 is actually the class that we got to take if you were caught up with all your math and English during summer bridge. And so just taking those kind of classes and really getting like language for things that like I didn't even know like there were words for. It was like explaining all these things that I had experienced or, you know, and again, this is before the phones. You know what I mean?
That couldn't look it up.
Didn't have all these
Google
fancy,
it.
you know what I mean? And of course, my family wasn't having those types of conversations, but I'm seeing all these different dynamics and things playing out with what I'm watching on TV and in my community and, you know what I mean? And at school, but I don't really know the words for it, you know? So that was like extremely eye-opening. And there was this class I took 2 classes at the end for my upper GEs that was really impactful. One of them was called Alternative Forms of Spirituality. And that was an amazing class. I can't remember the name of the professor, but she was so dope. And we talked about all these different ways of connecting to spirit that are outside of the mainstream colonial religions and connecting to ourselves, which that really set me on a mental health journey. Because at the same time, I was also taking this class that was about, it was what was it? It was called like it was about your body, but it was like how to heal your body through mental health. It was meant to be like a PE class, but it was really focused on a lot of mental health stuff. And they were, you know, teaching us things like, you know, breathing and, you know, things that I had never heard of before or thought of before. And this was around the same time where I, like I said, started realizing like the stuff I experienced as a child is not normal, but unfortunately more normal for a lot of people than it should be. But, you know what I mean? Not something that I should normalize and something that I actually have been suppressing, going back to that story as a child, right? And on top of suppressing, I was also very much covering up through this, everything's fine. I could be blacked out drunk and people would never know. You know what I mean? Like that's not okay and that's not something that I was ready to confront at the time. And it got to a point where it all kind of just started unraveling. And so this was during the time I was also like, okay, I need to like really talk about what happened, if not to anyone, at least to myself. And I remember vividly there would be like 4 hours. I would set down a time. Sunday was going to be the time where 4 hours or however long it took, I'm going to sit down and write down everything I could remember as a child. Things that I had never said out loud. Things that I, you know, there's so many things when you grow up in environments like that that you forget about or you like
It's tucked
you
down
didn't
there.
really forget about
It's
it, but
there.
you just kind of, it's like a glitch. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
Your brain like doesn't really remember, but you do remember because
Yeah.
it affects so much of how you act subconsciously.
Right.
But it's like a survival. You know,
Yeah.
your body's like, oh yeah, we're not really, oh yeah. But then you say it and you're like, oh, this actually does affect me. And it
Yeah,
affects
absolutely.
every single way of how I exist in a day-to-day life, my mental health,
Yeah.
you know, how I navigate spaces, you know, my sense of self and
Right.
self-confidence,
Yeah.
all those things. And so, like I said, I'm kind of a late bloomer in many ways because I feel like, you know, my home life was, you know, very much not, you know, no guidance in those kinds of ways. Right. My mom did the best that she can, you know,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
With everything that was happening. But, you know, it's different than when you have like school and real mental health professionals. I got to go to therapy for the first time second time, because we did some group anger management and stuff like that, AA stuff, with my family when I was younger too. But for me individually, by myself and as an adult, that really was helpful as well. So a lot of the real unpacking happened in college, and the real journey to mental health. And really, mental health to me is also really healing in a lot of ways. It's a journey to healing yourself, because your mental health is really self-healing in many ways.
Absolutely. You got to dig deep. You got to dig deep and heal everything that happened. Absolutely.
And ongoing, like, I don't think it ends.
It does. No, it's a lifelong journey.
Constant
No,
learning
it's definitely
and
a
unlearning
lifelong journey. Absolutely.
Yeah, all the things.
So how did being diagnosed with ADHD at such a young age influence your journey through school and self-discovery?
Man, you'll be asking all these really deep questions. How did it influence my journey through what? Can you repeat the last part? Sorry.
How did being diagnosed with ADHD at such a young age influence your journey through school and self-discovery?
In school, you know, I think it made it difficult at times, because school was this place that was a sense of normalcy and something that I really loved.
Yeah.
But then there was this sense of like, I'm the problem. And that was very much aware to me from a very young age. One of my first experiences in a school setting was going into my brother's kindergarten classroom, and the teacher saying, I feel bad for whoever's going to be her teacher. You know,
No.
and not, you know, and of course as a kid you don't understand any of that type of what's going on, you know, but you hear it. And I think a lot of adults don't realize how much kids actually hear and pick up on what's happening.
Wow.
So that was one of the first things I remember about having ADHD, and how it was like, I'm the problem and something's wrong with me. And this is, you know, now
that's breaking me my heart.
It's okay.
Oh my goodness.
I appreciate you. You know, but now it's interesting because everyone's neurospicy and it's like cool and sexy. And I was like, it was not cool and sexy back then. And on top of not being cool and sexy back then, it was also like, you need to correct yourself.
Wow.
And you're going to be heavily medicated without consent.
Goodness.
So, I mean, I took medication up until the time I was in middle school. You know, not that it wasn't like, you know, against my consent in a way like that, but you know, that was kind of the way that people dealt with it, is like, you just get your child on medication. And it's a very different way now, to where a lot of parents are not so open to that, or more, you know, don't even want to label their kids ADHD or any of those things. Which my personal stance on it is that, so there's that aspect, right, where like I knew that something was wrong and I was the problem, and I think it really added to this self-analytical, critiquing that I already, like, the self-consciousness of like, okay, I need to pay attention to how I am in spaces. Let me try and like make sure I'm sitting still and listening. I need to listen better. I need to, you know, saying things all the time without thinking was really difficult, you know, and that also affected not just me in the classroom, but also my peer relationships. You know, I would say or do something and be like, yeah, what did I do? You know, not able to connect the dots. And so that really made it hard, because it was something I really loved, school, but then there was also this sense of like, there's something wrong with me that makes it hard for me to, you know, fully be able to be myself in this space. And I have to correct that. I have to fix that. Now on the flip side, I'm really grateful that I was diagnosed early because one thing I don't support is not diagnosing individuals and not getting them help and not like that's probably one of the worst things I think you can do, because then you have adults who are just barely learning about that and not realizing how it's affected
their whole
all
life.
of their whole life, and they don't have any tools, resources, or understanding. And so because I was so aware of it from a young age, I had to really work very hard to find out how I can self-regulate and work on those things in school and out of school, because I've gone on and off of taking medication for ADHD, and it became a thing where I was like, I want to show myself that I could do it. But there's also many things about the medication that I also really love, and that I think are really awesome as well. So in many aspects, I'm grateful for it because I wouldn't have that kind of understanding.
Right.
But it definitely affected my relationship with school, and I would say it affected more my relationship with my peers, and feeling like I was always doing too much. I still feel like I do too much and say too much.
Girl, we all do too much.
Put my foot in my mouth.
Okay. It's okay.
All the things.
It's okay. But I like how you put that into perspective of being diagnosed at a young age and knowing and being aware and being able to have those tools into your adult life is key. It's good. It's really good because similar to you, like they tried to put me on medication for depression when I was younger and anxiety, and my mom wouldn't allow it. She wouldn't allow them to. So I did struggle, and I was labeled as a problem child, and getting into trouble and doing things, and it never was. I never got the resources any further. Like no.
And that's where I think it's the worst. Is like I understand not wanting to label your child, and not wanting. Because that really wasn't a great feeling either. It was like, you have ADHD, you are a problem, you need to correct yourself. I was getting in trouble, getting my red card all the time.
All the time.
all the things, and feeling like I was the issue. But at the same time, and even then, I wish some of those other resources would have came at that time too. All of that came from my own desire as I got older, going into middle school, high school, and college, being like, I want to prove to myself that I can control myself, so to speak, or regulate. Well, what I've kind of grown to understand now is it's really about self-regulation, because it doesn't only just affect your ability to, be still and being hyperactive in your speech and all those other things, but it also affects your ability to regulate your emotions, and it really affects your ability in how overstimulated you are, like your sensory perception.
Everything around you,
and that's something, that latter part about sensory is something I didn't really even understand until the last couple of years, and it's one of the reasons that I went back on medication this past year, because it's helped so much more with things like a lot of people who have ADHD also have depression and also have anxiety because they struggle to regulate their emotions.
Up and down.
And so there are practices and things that you can do, just like mental health practices. And that's why it's so important to have a diagnosis and to understand your diagnosis so that you can create a practice that helps you and create language that helps you, right? So like, I can say, hey, I'm really overstimulated. I'm gonna need a dip. Okay, bye.
See y'all later. Deuces.
And take myself out of here. But if not, it's just I end up being the weird person who disappears at events, which still happens sometimes.
And that's all right. You got to do what you got to do.
If you all ever see me disappear at an event, it's probably because I'm overstimulated.
That's okay, and that's all right, and that's okay. At least you know that about yourself, and setting up those healthy boundaries for yourself.
Trying the best that I can.
So you spoke about addiction and escape. What was your turning point towards healing?
There were a couple times where I was almost arrested, actually, and I think had I been someone else and been from a different background, I probably would have been arrested. In those kinds of situations, I just realized, is like, man, I can't, that's not healthy. There's times where I would wake up on the other side of a subway station completely alone at 3 a.m, passed out because I was drunk and missed my stop. in a city that I'm not even familiar with because I'm only there for a limited amount of time, you know? And that was something that I don't want to say like I like searched out for those things, but, you know, I'd be like, oh, I'm in a new city or a new town or a new whatever it is. I'm just going to get drunk and ride around the train or the bus or whatever, and or walk around the city. And, you know, there's times where I was throwing things off freeways and just doing a lot of really dumb stuff. Punching buildings, things that are just, you know, not very healthy. And so it was through that process of doing things like that and going back to those classes in college, because it was right around, I think when it got the worst was right before I took those classes. It was like the semester before. It was really, you know, putting all all the dots started connecting. I was like, oh, you know. And because my roommate at the time, she was going through something that was very deeply tied to what she had been through in terms of abuse and things like that, that when she started talking about it, it made me realize, like, oh, this is actually, like, really connected, and I need to, like, talk about this and work through it and do something about it. Because it had gotten so out of hand, too. There was a couple times I had alcohol poisoning, and, you know, of course, I'm, like, barely 21 at this time. You know, I'm like, oh, this is normal. Again, it's not normal. All the things we normalize.
Going out partying is like normal. We think that, and that's just, it's really not.
It's not normal, you know.
It's not. Wow.
So, yeah, and once I kind of got the idea of, like, oh, this isn't normal, you know, like, let me work on this, you know.
Yeah, you had a lot of work to work on.
And it's been years. I mean, this is like, I graduated college in like 2016. So I would say that I really, really started diving in probably around 2015-ish, you know? Yeah, 2015-ish. In terms of like my own healing journey, really starting to become aware of how all these things impacted me. Yeah, and I still...
Yeah, it's the same for me. Like, I didn't realize it until I got to college, and just knowing, like, what is all this dysfunction in my family. I didn't even know what dysfunction was until I got to college, and then I'm like, this is dysfunction. My whole life has been dysfunction. Like, everything that was going on was not supposed to be going on. And it takes a long time to, you know, relearn new things. Unlearn, relearn, like you said earlier. So, but you're doing an amazing job because you're a beautiful soul.
You too. Look at you have
you're
this
a beautiful soul.
Happening, holding space for everyone. I appreciate it.
So, how do you define healing for yourself today?
Well, my healing journey has, you know, gone through many forms and layers and areas and places. I would say I define healing as anything you're doing to bring yourself back to yourself, like your true essence of who you are, like you're beyond who you think you are, you know, like your soul, your spirit, your real, you know, your most enlightened moments, like that version of yourself, like whatever brings you back to that. Kind of like a homeostasis, you know. I would define that as healing, and that can be so many things, right? Like with everything going on right now in our society, I think my healing is a lot more about learning how to use my voice and learning how to navigate beyond the anxieties and self-criticisms and self-consciousness. Whereas before, my healing was maybe more centered on, you know, being in places where I could allow myself to cry, or being able to speak on certain things that happened that I never spoke about before. So I think it's wherever you're at that, you know, you need to, like, what's happening in your life right now that is not allowing you to be at your homeostasis. And I don't mean like your sense of normalcy when it's not normal, but your most... Like, think of yourself as a baby, you know, like if you were just, you know, all that conditioning and environmental stuff wasn't there, like what would that sense of self be, you know? And the moment you walk into a space and all this starts bugging up, that's stuff you got to work on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's not, I mean, it's normal, you know, but that's stuff that we should heal. So we can be in community and really be in community and be present and be ourselves and, and know how to hold space and step back and, you know what I mean? And navigate with that kind of community care.
Yeah.
Because we're all carrying our various traumas into these spaces.
Absolutely.
And that's where you see a lot of it interact, is not just in community spaces, but also in your relationship.
Yeah.
Whenever you're with other humans, really.
Always.
So whenever that happens, I think really healing is like, you know, self-reflecting on that and being like, okay, what is this area or what is this aspect of myself that's like calling attention?
Right.
And what is it needing and what kind of work is it asking me to do?
Yeah.
And sometimes that can be more rest.
More rest.
Sometimes it can be more getting in your body, physical, you know, breathing and exercises.
Absolutely.
Sometimes it can be, you know, getting more connected in your community.
Right.
Maybe it's creating new forms of family. That's an area that many people need healing around, you know. So yeah, that's the thing currently I think I'm working on, is how I navigate spaces primarily, and how I use my voice. Because there was a time period where there was a lot of things I couldn't talk about. Yeah. You know, I just didn't. Sometimes when I tell people certain things, they'll be like, wow, I never knew, or how come you don't talk about, you know, these things? And I didn't know how. Right. And
feel safe. You didn't feel safe.
Didn't feel safe. And I didn't feel confident enough in my story. Or there's a lot of times where I'm like, oh, it's better if I just don't say anything. Right. You know, let me not. So I'm kind of just, you know, that's where my personal healing is at this moment, is learning where it is important for me to speak up. Nice. and how, and where to be courageous in that way, beyond just my music, but in my personal life, and how I carry myself in the everyday.
Absolutely. Know? Beautifully said. Beautifully said.
Thank you.
I felt that because when you were explaining it too, like in healing as a baby, you know, I felt that like, that's true, because you just want to take yourself back to that and just comfort yourself, you know, comfort that inner child.
Yeah, and when you're not in that, right, that can create, I don't feel safe being in relationships, right? Like that can create that feeling of like, you know, I hate men, or whatever it is, whatever your identity and you know what I mean? Well, I'm better just single, or whatever it is, you know? Or it can create the, you know, I can't have friends and be in community because everyone in my community is out to get me, and everyone's a hater, you know, whatever it is.
Some days it'd be like that.
Or, you know, I have something to say, but I'm so afraid to say it because I don't want to get canceled, or I don't know how people are going to receive it, or, you know, all these, you know, things that, you know, I think some of those things are important in terms of like, you know, we should think about what we're saying.
Absolutely.
You know,
absolutely.
But, you know, there's certain aspects of all those layers where we're really, you know, preventing ourselves from connection, you know, in some capacity, because we've been traumatized. So whatever gets us back to that connection with ourselves, to where we can do that authentically with others in a way that is the most harmonious, you know, because that's been the biggest thing too for me lately, is like, it's not about what's best for me or what's best for this person necessarily. It's about what is best for everyone. Like that's where I think the collective healing also is at this moment.
For sure. Definitely. So what practices or tools help you maintain your mental health, spiritual balance?
Tarot. I brought my deck because I be loving my tarot cards. Tarot is definitely one of those things. Hey. And you know, tarot is interesting because it gets a bad rep, and there's so many things about all that stuff.
Always.
But for me, I kind of like it because MF Doom is also a really big inspiration of mine. I love that he's like the villain and this original character. Yep. And that's kind of how I feel about the whole hip hop witch label. Yeah. Is that, you know, people may look at that and be like, oh, is she casting evil? And no, I don't do any of that. Right. I don't believe in any of that.
Not at all.
At its most basic core, what being a witch means is being anti-colonial, anti-white supremacy, and being a herbal wise woman. That is what is indigenous European witchcraft. That's what it really is, and that's where it actually roots from. Is if you look at the witchcraft or the witch trials and all that stuff, it came directly from colonial imperialistic rule needing to take through religion and erase the people who were there before and their practices and demonize it.
Right.
So it's really, to me, a way to connect to a time before the current that we have, and going back to sense of self and like, how did I get to a sense of self? Part of that to me was trying to what does it mean to exist in a white body and not subscribe to white culture?
Wow.
Ideologically, in who I am as a person, like, what does that even look like?
Yeah.
Because we have so few examples that aren't corny or, which, sometimes I've been on the corny side, sorry.
Okay.
But, that isn't either corny or, completely deftone or, white knighting it over there, or virtue signaling and all the other things that come with it, that has been a very difficult journey to figure out, like, what does that mean for me? And witchcraft, and that term witch for me is the way to connect to that kind of pre-colonial resistance of before we were colonized by the Roman Empire, which all of Europe pretty much was. And a reclaiming of that kind of spiritually, to embrace that and connect to that energy, so that I can also know how to navigate in a way that's not just co-opting or because a lot of how I came to my healing also was directly related to being given the amazing blessing to be invited into ceremonies and getting to sit in circles with the Miwok tribe here in Sacramento. But also through that process, it taught me a lot about, well, what does that look like for someone in my body? So I'm not just coming in here and culturally appropriating and, co-opting the space, but I learned a lot from that. And so tarot, is very much deeply connected to witchcraft and that kind of as well. And it's something that actually I was gifted, and I started just fiddling around with it and realizing that it really is like, have you ever seen those little ink dots, like the Rothschild's tests? Like, it's like, they'll be like, what do you see?
Oh, yes,
and you're like, I see a butterfly. I see a man. I see, that's really, at its simplest form, like what tarot is like. There's stories and history that's behind each card that helps you to better understand that. But when you're pulling tarot and you're tapping into, how am I feeling right now? Outside of tarot, other things are, being in my body, so stretching. I have a practice of stretching every day, most days. There's some days, life be lifing. But stretching and trying to do some form of exercise, getting out in nature. That one I don't do as much as I'd like, but even if it's just like taking a walk around Midtown, going to the river, even in my own little area, see my plants outside of my house, taking some time next to my altar and just being as present as possible, taking some conscious breaths. Journaling's a big one, and reading I think is really good for your mental health too, like especially during these times. Like, I am finding a lot of comfort in literature and really upping my reading. So those are some of the current ways that I think I practice that, and just music and being in community, and pouring it back into my music, and the way I can show up for others. Sometimes I think it's really important to do that, not only because it's awesome to connect with others, but also it helps you to see outside of yourself when you're in service to others, whether it's going and hanging out with the kids, or going and helping out at an event. You kind of get to be a part of something bigger than yourself, and you tend to start seeing, like, oh, everyone has problems.
Absolutely.
And if you isolate, that's like the worst thing you can do. And sometimes we need to do that. We got to cry it out, move it out, deep reflection and accountability of things, but other times it can just be like, I don't know if nihilism's the right word. Is that where you're like isolating and just brooding and all the things? So I try not to do that and get out and just, even if I'm feeling uncomfortable or I do my secret, I'm dipping out and no one's gonna notice. Bye. That's part of my mental health too, is getting out and saying, hey, hi.
I showed face, now I'm out, bye. I'm learning how to do that too. I'll show up, you'll see me, and then That's just a healthy boundary, though.
Yeah.
That's a good healthy
And it's mainly because
boundary.
if I'm not feeling good with myself, I try to be mindful of like spreading that in spaces.
Right.
But I'm also like, hey, I need to get out and
Right.
like see people who I love and
Be in
who
community,
bring
for
joy
sure.
to me and might say something or share something in that community space that might make me think about what I'm going through differently,
Right.
even if I don't share what I'm going through in the moment.
Right.
And some of those, especially poetry spaces and music shows, open mics, like some of those events can be some of the most like healing, forms of mental health, is just getting to hear through other people's medicine as well as being able to share your own.
Absolutely. I usually feel better every time I leave. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it does. It feels good.
Yes.
So, how have artists like KRS-One and Erykah Badu influenced your style and message?
Ooh, so much. That's Mama and Papa right there. KRS-One teacher has influenced me so much. I got to apprentice for him and just getting to learn under him and in many aspects of like being an artist at that level and learning some of the like real, how to tour at that level, how to book shows and lectures and with an artist such as KRS-One, who is very high up.
Right.
So on that logistical level, I learned a lot, but also just, being a part of the fellowship and the temple and getting to learn from him on a philosophical and spiritual level. He has a ton of medicine and he started his live series during COVID, and that was really impactful to helping me get through that time period.
Wow.
And going back to like studying being something that really helps me with my mental health and when things are dark in life. He definitely has helped me through a lot of dark times through studying with him. And also taught me a lot as an artist, touring with him and getting to work with him in that capacity as well. Erykah Badu, man, just her as a human being, like, she just is amazing, She really embodies. There's something I think that's so important to me as a person is regardless of how spiritual I am, quote unquote, I think everyone's spiritual,
Right.
We all have a spirit inside of us.
Yeah.
But as much as those practices are important to me, I think there can also be this kind of like high horse mentality and people thinking my way is the right way. And, and think they're so absolved from the human experience. And I really have learned and appreciated and really love that about Erykah Badu is that she is someone who like really allows herself to be someone who is tapped into her spiritual self, but is also very much rooted into and grounded as a human being here on this earth. And if we are only up here and not down here, we're not really doing the work, in my opinion. You got to be connected connecting the dots, or you're doing yourself a disservice and the ones around you a disservice. So I think she's taught me a lot about that and being a multidimensional artist, not just, I'm this type of artist.
Right.
She's part of the reason I'm like, I want to DJ. I want to get some turntables. Like, what? You know? Yeah, all those things.
That's dope. That's dope. So what message do you hope listeners take away from your album, Moving Different?
I think in general, this album came a lot from actual therapy that I did with therapists.
Nice.
And it also came a lot from being in circumstances where it really caused me to move different. And so I think also, just where we are currently in the world, I think a lot of us need to move different. And that's not to say that I think I'm moving any better than anybody else.
Right.
I think it's more of an invitation to call us all in to reflect on what that might mean for everyone to move a little bit different. I hope that they can feel that in that album and, they can sense a little something different than what is currently being put out, because a lot of what's being put out right now is, is very disheartening in many ways. But, there are other artists who are putting out great things and doing that work. And this album is just part of my own internal work and sharing that with the world, hoping that it, relates to someone who also might be going through some of those same kind of difficulties.
Nice. That's nice. So if you could speak to your younger self, what would you tell her now?
Oh, that's gonna make me cry. Hold it. Oh, girl. I've done so good through this whole session of not crying.
Crying is welcome. Crying is needed. It's a beautiful thing. It is. We are a safe space.
I can't even get
you
myself
are
to get the
loved.
words.
We love you here.
I would really encourage her. I would just really encourage her. You know, I don't think I had a lot of encouragement, you know, to develop myself and to discover who I am and to, you know, and, you know, my mom, like I said, she did the best that she can, you know, but she also worked a lot to keep everything together and, you know, and I wasn't home a lot because of that, you know, and, you know, I would just encourage her and want to pour love into her and see the things that she was doing well and tell her to lean into it and, you know, give her a hug.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and just, you know, encourage her to explore herself more because I think that's the thing that I wish I would have done from a, you know, give her a safe space to do so.
Absolutely.
That's what I wish I could do for my younger self.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much
you.
for sharing that. Look, you got me in my feelings. But let's switch gears. Let's switch gears. Let's leave on a
I'm gonna show up to Shady Lady with
a higher note.
I'll makeup all smeared.
So you got some new music, Move Different, a new album coming out. You brought some music. We'll listen to some music, you know, to end the show and just let the viewers know who you really are and, you know, let you shine. Thank you so much. Thank you.
I appreciate you so much.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you for having this platform for me and, you know, everyone else.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on target, can't take personal what they do. What's a lame to a giant like I'm 10 feet too? Can't jump through your hoop or screw, tryna stick to me like glue. Energy I must remove. What's a rough to a diamond? I'm on my island, get away for a day, need some guiding. No pride in lying, triggered your fight or flight, and the darkness inside it be blinded by the light. Let's get to work, we on site. God grant me inner strength and insight. Keep the to a minimum, fools like Zimmerman, stop defending them. She's still waiting for a better him. Well, she might be waiting forever. Ain't it like God's grace to believe we can get better? Or should I write this off like a letter? These 16's my therapy, now I feel a little better. Yeah, these 16's my therapy, now I feel better. Yeah, these 16's my therapy, now I feel better. Yeah, these 16's my therapy, now I feel better. Yeah, these 16's my therapy, now I feel better.
That was Moving Different. So that's my second self-produced project. It dropped on 9/16 Day. Check it out.
Yes.
Also wanted to give a shout out to Hip Hop for Change. I'm representing their shirt right now. This is the End White Supremacy shirt. Hip Hop for Change is an organization in the Bay Area. They do work with the youth and they go into schools and teach hip hop history as well as the elements of hip hop and, you know, encourage that kind of art and creativity and creating that, you know, safe space for kids. So just wanted to give them a shout out real quick since I'm repping their shirt right now.
I love that. Mm-hmm. So do you have any upcoming shows that people can go out and see you? I know your album's already out on all platforms.
Album's out on all platforms. Check it out. That's the main thing I'm pushing right now. And like I said, I produced all of it myself. So definitely support female producers. And, you know, if you need a beat or something, hit me up.
Absolutely.
But also, I have a couple shows coming up. We have our December 14th show that we just locked down on Sunday, December 14th at City Sound.
Okay.
It's going to be myself, Soli Bowl,
Nice.
with SAC 916. And we're still working on getting the rest of the lineup together and everyone officially confirmed and booked.
Okay.
And then I'm going to be doing my official album release party. So I really hope to see everyone January 18th. That is also the 3-year anniversary of SAC 916.
Nice.
Shout out to my girl, Amber.
Shout out Amber.
If
We
you're
love
watching
Amber.
this, I
yes,
love you.
We love you, Amber.
Amber is my manager and just one of my closest friends and someone who's talking about healing and mental health. She's helped hold me down so much, and our relationship is such a healing and reciprocal relationship. And she's the founder of SAC 916. So it's been 3 years of us working together and co-coordinating events and, building all this stuff kind of from the ground up. So we're also celebrating our 3-year anniversary on January 18th. And also, we'll have Madi Bush from Sacramento joining us, who is one of my OGs and, a legend here in Sacramento.
Yes.
Who also released his project on 916 Day, who will also be celebrating his album release too.
Nice.
So December 14th, Sunday, and January 18th, which is also a Sunday, are the next 2 shows that I have coming up in Sacramento. And then Culture Circle happens every second and fourth Thursday. That's a bi-monthly that SAC 916 hosts, as well as our main host, Zeke Zulu. And I get to provide sound for, and it's an open mic spot that's really primarily focused on creating a space that's open to all levels of artists, all genres. It's not a showcase type of open mic, but a space where you could come and know absolutely nothing, never stepped foot on stage, terrified out of your mind, and hopefully find a space that you feel empowered to do that for the first time. Or you could be an artist who's very skilled, but maybe you want to try something a little different that maybe in other spaces you don't feel like you have a space to do that because you're used to being known for this thing. So that's their space where you can bring out your guitar that you've never played live, even though you've done music for 10 years plus professionally, or do an R&B song, even though you usually do emceeing and rapping. So that's every second and fourth Thursday.
Where's
and our
it
next, it's over at Whiskey Tango's.
Okay.
Thank you for asking. Off of Arden Expressway, 8 to 11 p.m., 18 plus until 10 p.m., and then 21 plus after.
Nice.
And you can sign up early for the open mic, or you can sign up there. And we also have a couple of features each time too.
Yes.
So we will have our next one November 13th with Unity Lewis and Poetic Butterfly. So definitely come check that one out. We won't have a fourth Thursday because of the holiday. So come out, come support, come be in community. And those are some of the things I got happening right now.
So where can people find you?
You can find me at www.moonmagicflows.com. That's my platform. And most of my handles are Moon Magic Flows on all platforms. Moon Magic is my artist names, and Flows is what I do. Following life's outcome willingly. Shout out to G. Simone, the acronologist who made that acronym. And then the only one that's different is TikTok.
Okay.
It's Moon Magic, the hip hop witch, because I locked myself out of my old one.
Okay.
And come find me on Threads. I really be getting down on Threads.
All right. So like, comment, subscribe, check yourself, check your mental health, tune into this episode of Thursday Therapy, and check out Moon Magic. Thank you for coming on the show. I love it.
Thank you.
I love it.
That's Moses, stupid.